Big shout out to today's video sponsor, Linsol. Check out their fantastic deals in the links in the video description. It seems like every set of earphones that you see these days are designed to be as enclosed as possible and give you as much isolation as you can get with active noise cancellation. But what if you did the opposite and instead tried to make something open and allow you to hear the outside world along with whatever media you're listening to? Today we'll be talking about that in my review of Shokz's OpenFit earbuds coming up. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas and it looks like audio is actually here to stay on this channel. Shokz sent out their OpenFit earbuds for me to review, however they're not paying to say anything in this video and they're also not getting any kind of watching this before you or any kind of editorial input, so keep that in mind when watching today's video. Seems like every single manufacturer is trying to make active noise cancelling ANC earbuds at the moment. Literally everyone is trying to do that, but Shokz is trying to go the opposite route and give you something where you can hear the outside world. These cost $180, so around the same price as some of the higher end ANC buds, but offered the distinct advantage of letting you hear that stuff. This is arguably done by some of the likes of the AirPods Pros with their transparency mode, but I would argue there are a few reasons why you should go with these over those. Of course they come in a charging case with a USB-C port but no wireless charging, and are a pretty basic design. They're coated in a soft touch silicone and feel very high quality and well made. They have some basic branding on the earpiece, and the hook that sits around your ear, it's fairly balanced and it has the battery in the end of it. It doesn't feel very heavy, it feels good, feels comfortable, at least for me. And you also get capacitive touch sensors on the side for the controls. These are under a sort of like braille-like pattern so you can find them. They're not particularly responsive, not particularly intuitive. They're fairly easy to use, I would say, but very limited and very basic. They don't do this as well as Apple does with its stem, but they work. I did notice that they didn't pause when you take your earphone away from your ear like the AirPods Pros do. They automatically pause and then start resuming when you put it back in your ear. The OpenFit doesn't do that, unfortunately, which is kind of annoying at times, but it's definitely not the end of the world. The buds are IP54 rated, so should be alright in the rain and when sweating when using these in a workout, but aren't super well protected against any kind of dropping the case in a pool of water or anything like that. They also don't get very uncomfortable after having them in for hours, so I was running my battery tests and I could wear these things for like 6 hours at a time and barely notice they're even there. Probably the most comfortable earphones I've ever worn, and of course I've reviewed a lot of IEMs that are very comfortable, but because these don't actually go in your ear, they're very comfortable. They're also easy to clean because they don't actually sit inside your ear, so if you're the sort of person that likes to share their earbuds with their friends or the family, but you're worried about the sort of hygiene concerns, there really aren't many with the OpenFits because they don't go inside the ear. Now, I am still the kind of person to wipe off the earbud before I give it to someone or before I receive it back, but at the same time I'm not worried that there's going to be any kind of issues with hygiene just simply because of the design. The sound is interesting. So they're a single dynamic driver, which is a very basic setup, as basic as you can get, and they kind of sound good. Like there's a lot of bass, which is something I wasn't expecting because there's no seal. There's a decent amount of detail, but I would say that it sounds like a very basic earphone, but then the whole thing is coated in a slight muffle. Nothing sounds particularly crisp. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not like you're playing a speaker in another room. It's not that kind of sound. It's just ever so slightly sort of dimmed down a bit. They're very warm sounding, very basic sounding. Most people are probably going to like the sound. It's not bad, it's just not very technical. I would also like to add that music sounded a little bit crushed, which is essentially where you can sort of hear the non-analog aspect of music. It sounds quite digital. This didn't happen with every track, but it was consistent enough that I thought it would be worth bringing up in the video. Although I imagine if you bought the OpenFit, you're not particularly focused on the actual sound quality. You can though definitely hear everything around you. It's a really weird sensation if you're not used to it. You basically hear like you normally do, but just with like the addition of some music as opposed to the music overtaking and replacing the sound that you would normally listen to. very natural, really comfortable. They do their job incredibly well. So you can listen out for traffic, for people. You can do all that while still listening to a podcast or music or guidance when you're doing your exercises, for example. Shokz claims 7 hours of battery life outside of the case and then a further 28 with them in the case. And the latter one was kind of hard to tell. I would say that you could get 20 plus hours, but with the outside battery life, I didn't find these to live up to expectations. The first time I listened to them and I was sure that they were 100% charged, I only got 3.5 hours before the beeps started and then they died. But then I charged them up and the next day I tried them again, 6.5 hours. Not quite the 7 that was shown in the documentation, but 6.5 hours is quite respectable, and it happened the subsequent time. So every time I tested it, which was about 4 times, the first time was 3.5 hours, the final 3 times, all 6 to 6.5 hours of around 1/3 to 1/2 volume, all streaming from my iPhone. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised with my time using the Shokz OpenFit. It's a different approach, one that I appreciate because you're not just creating ANC buds like everyone else. A lot of people in my ANC buds reviews that I've done, mostly the AirPods Pros, have said in the comments, I actually like the transparency mode because I want to be able to hear traffic, people. I don't want to get mugged. I want to be able to hear someone coming up on me. And actually, these would do really well for that kind of thing. They don't sound as good as most traditional earphones because they're not built like traditional earphones. But I would say that most people who don't care about having the crispest sound quality will get away with these just fine. I mean, you guys probably know I've reviewed 600 euro pairs of IEMs, but I would kind of wear the Shokz anyway because I'm not wearing the Shokz to sit down and listen to music. I am wearing the Shokz to go out, and the focus is not primarily the music. Anyway, I give these a good 7 out of 10. Solid. If you're on the fence about buying them, I would recommend buying them. If you're not interested in them, I wouldn't go out of your way to buy them. If you don't need something that is particularly open, don't worry about it. Sound quality is not really good enough for that trade-off. But if you do need something that's open, the sound quality is good enough. Big thanks to Shokz for sending out the OpenFit. I appreciate that. Links to their stuff will be in the video description. And yeah, great review. Solid recommendation. Anyway, want to thank my patrons for being continually supportive, and I want to thank you all so much for watching. So please like, comment and subscribe, all that fun stuff, and check out all my social medias in the links in the video description. I'm Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.